Goodman does all their games, and he says hello here on High Heat. Drew, Happy New Year. Always a pleasure. How are you today, pal? Okay?
Good. I'm doing well, doggy. Yourself?
I'm okay, and it's a tricky spot. I mean, he's got that opt-out clause, which makes it difficult to get a lot back because you never know what he might do in 2 years. The Rockies is sort of an up-and-down deal because it's hard in that ballpark to be great every year because of the pitching being so erratic. So they're in a very interesting scenario here. What's your take on what is going down? Will they trade him in the foreseeable future, whether that be, let's say, by the deadline, the trading deadline in July? What do you see? Let me hear.
You know, it's certainly appearing more and more like this. When the rumors first started, 4, 6 weeks ago, I was at the winter meetings, and I said, that's just not what the Rockies do, especially with guys that were, grown up or grew up, if you will, in the Rockies organization and became stars. They typically have not traded those guys. They want to keep them a Rocky. Todd Helton would be, example number one. And so I said, this isn't going to happen. There's no way. But the more you hear about it and the more you think about, where they are and the fact that he can opt out, then it becomes more credible, these rumors, if you will. And the bottom line is we all know they're not going to win in the court of public opinion, Chris, but the bottom line is winning. 2 of the last 3 years they won. They went to the postseason. Last year they did not. So if you trade him, depending on what you get back, that will ultimately determine, as we all know, whether or not this is looked upon favorably down the road. Because initially, there's no way they're going to win it.
Yeah, because court of public opinion. But by the same token, Drew, he's going to opt out. I mean, because the Rockies, first off, they all do, number one. Number two, he's going to have great years. So he's not going to be opting out of a bad year. And number two, you just can't count on the Rockies year in and year out just the way it is. Plus in this division with the Dodgers sitting there, you can't count on every year them being a chance to win a championship. And he's going to see that, and he's going to, test the market again. That puts the Rockies in a tough situation. So instead of being caught in a spot like maybe, say, the Red Sox are with Betts, maybe make a move and trade him now where a team that gets him at least has him for 2 years. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that's why it would not surprise me now if they do a deal prior to the start of the season. And that's a 180 for me from where we were, 4, 6 weeks ago, as I mentioned, because you're going to try to maximize what you can get back. If he were to waive the no trade, first of all, and then the option, and he's probably going to have to get more dollars to do that. That enhances what you could potentially get in return. And number one, Chris, you understand this. You've been around this game for a long time. With the Rockies, because they're unique, they play at altitude, the only way they get pitching is to grow their own, whether they draft it or sign it from Latin America. That's really the only way, save making a trade. And you now have the ability, potentially, to get something significant in return. And so that's probably where they're looking right now. And again, they're not going to win this in the court of public opinion. But if you can look back from a Rockies perspective and say, all right, Matt Holliday was a similarly thought of player when he left the Rockies. They couldn't come to an agreement financially. They traded him to Oakland. In return, they got Carlos Gonzalez, who became not only a foundational player, a perennial all-star, but an iconic Rocky. They got Houston Street, who was an elite closer for a couple of years.
Yep.
In 2009, they won 92 games. So from a Rockies fan standpoint, you have to hope something like that occurs if, in fact, Nolan is moved.
All right, did you look at the Cardinal-Rays trade this week with a raised eyebrow, considering the fact that the Cardinals got the big pitcher there, who is a huge prospect, lefty, young, and thinking that maybe that could be the place where Arenado ends up with the pitcher going back to Colorado as part of the big package? Did you look at that as a possibility when that trade was made?
Yeah, I think certainly you had that raised some eyebrows. St. Louis seems to be heavily involved in conversation with the Rockies from everything that you hear. And it was curious that they made the move. Tampa has a great history of developing pitching. And from the Rockies' perspective, one of the things they've done very well through the years is develop position players and develop hitters. Trevor Story, obviously Nolan Arenado. He wasn't, a top 5 pick. He was a second round pick when he came out high school. Many thought he'd have to go behind the plate, which is interesting because he perhaps is the greatest defensive third baseman ever. He's certainly in that conversation. So they've really done a great job of developing position players. It's all about pitching. The sport will never change. They have to get some significant arms in return. And again, it's always dicey when you're talking about prospects that don't make it, but they're going to have to get, some significant names in return, and at least one of those, if not two, being on the pitching side if they're to make this move. That's my opinion.
No, I'd agree. And so spring training on day one, if he's there, that's going to be a little bit of a distraction down there in Scottsdale, correct?
It would be different because it wasn't just, people throwing a couple of darts against the wall and hoping something sticks. This is a story that has become, front and center throughout this winter, as opposed to just, a passing story here or there. So, yeah, if he is not moved and when spring training begins in a few weeks, every microphone is going to go up to him. And listen, he's typically very candid. And I know sometimes we parse words and sometimes we read too deeply into a frustrated athlete's, statement in a post-game loss. But there's something there. I think every athlete wants to win. I always laugh when they go, oh, he wants to win. Every athlete wants to win, right? So
that's why you're an athlete. Yes, exactly.
That's right. Why, yeah. At the end of the day, what does he have? He can check off every other box. He's got more money than he'll ever spend. He's got all the gold gloves. He's got the all-star appearances, the home run titles, the RBI titles. He wants to win consistently. I kind of chuckle, though, a little bit when people from afar look at the Rockies and they say, yeah, he wants to go to a winner. Well, 2 of the last 3 years, they were in the postseason. Even the bigger market teams can't guarantee that. We've seen the Yankees miss. Boston Red Sox win a championship. They were on the sidelines in October last year. So the Rockies actually, last year aside, last few years have been a pretty good team.
We shall see. It's an interesting storyline. Good job, Drew. Happy New Year.